Hey, Roger Martin here from Billings, Montana. This is Fox News. It's about the only place you can get any decent news out of anymore. But this has occurred July 22nd on Sunday morning. And some of the FISA documents were released, but not many. And a lot of the stuff was blacked out, according to the reporter.
Good morning, Maria. It's good to be with you.
Well, what strikes me about all of these documents that I've been looking at all morning is all of the redactions on every page. Major black lines redacted. So tell us, what did we learn from this FISA warrant?
Well, we certainly learned that there is a serious problem with the FBI presenting to the FISA court an application for a search warrant against a United States citizen, and then followed by 3 renewals when they were basing it on a very flawed document, the so-called Steele dossier that has never been verified. Even after all of this came out, they attempted to verify it and failed.
The Steele dossier has never been verified, even up to this time in July, the end of July 22nd. Maybe something else has come out, but we haven't found it yet. And this is what another congressman said. Listen, this accuser is full of crap. She doesn't have the time, the date, the year. That's crazy, and it's a local jurisdiction anyhow, a local crime.
A sex offense that's being alleged, it's handled by the local authorities. The FBI does not have jurisdiction for those cases.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I don't know what you would expect somebody to be able to do. You don't have the time. You don't have the year. You don't have the location. You said you didn't tell anybody. I don't know what else we would expect them to do. But you want to hear from it in her voice, not through the lens of filtering of some investigative.
You know how Congress works, so I'm going to tell you. Tell me if you, I have not checked on this process, but this is what they say, how this whole thing came up. It turns out that this woman we now know as Dr. Ford contacted Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. Mm-hmm. Anna Eshoo is a Democrat. She encouraged her to go to Feinstein, go to Senator Feinstein. She's the behemoth. She's on the Judiciary Committee. So Feinstein goes, okay, I hear your story. Put in a letter. So she puts in a letter. This is in July. She went to the Senate Ethics Committee with the letter, Senator Feinstein said, and asked if they would investigate to evaluate the allegations according to Feinstein, this according to her spokesperson. She was then told the Rules Committee would have to sign off on it. That would have violated, by the way, Ford's wishes to remain anonymous. When she said, I'm going to remain anonymous, they said they can't go any further with this, which is why it stopped. In September, she forwarded the letter to the FBI to spur an investigation. But then the accuser, now we know is Dr. Ford, went public, and then she asked for an investigation into it. And that's where we're at today. Now, we wanted to find out if she really did go to these committees. We could find out, right?
I've never heard of a member of Congress going to an ethics committee to find out about a potential witness at a hearing. That's just, I mean, maybe they do it differently in the Senate, but that's not how you do it in the House of Representatives. The ethics committee there is to judge and to take testimony and evidence of how members act, not some other person. That's the role of the congressional body itself. That's why the Judiciary Committee has the FBI do a background check, but they don't do... You don't request an investigation like that to the FBI. It would need to be referred to a local authority, which hadn't been done in the last 36 years.
In the next segment, I'd like to talk about...
Here's some more foolishness on the deep state crap.
Nor did he tell him, nor was he up to something, nor was he on some secret Soviet mission. Somebody got you to hear this and just let it flow. Cut 25.
I'm not sure if this has ever been reported. There was an Israeli diplomat named Christian Cantor who absolutely detested Trump, who one day in London decided to introduce me to his so-called girlfriend, a girl named Erica Thompson, who just also happened to be an intel officer from Australia and a senior advisor to Alexander Downer. Now, this was in April of 2016. I learned about the dirt from Joseph Mifsud in late April 2016. Now, why was an Australian intelligence officer meeting with me, probing me about my ties to the energy business in Israel? Why was she probing me about what the campaign was up to regarding Russia in April before Joseph Mifsud even told me about the dirt?
So Mifsud is the one who said, hey, I'm the professor, the Russian professor in England at some now defunct university. Tell him about this thing. Now, if I tell you, and then you happen to meet somebody in a bar, you might turn around and go, yeah, I just heard this information. So he was set up along the way. And the reason why people were onto him is because he reportedly took on David Cameron because David Cameron was killing the president before he was president. Now, listen to this. Cut 24.
The origin of this investigation started with my meeting with Alexander Downer in a bar in London. Mm-hmm. Now, because apparently that's the reason this investigation started, and that I am the only person who actually met with Downer in this bar, I retraced my steps of what actually led up to that meeting with Downer. And the environment and the people I was meeting that led to that meeting with Downer were incredibly suspicious. And it was clear that this meeting was completely controlled, and it was not a random attempt by Alexander Downer to invite me for a drink.
Downer got over $300 million to the Clinton Foundation, hates Trump, hated the idea of Trump winning the election. So Downer is working, he believes, for Brennan and Obama to entrap Papadopoulos and trip up any success that Trump might have, spurring this investigation. Do you buy in any of this?
Look, if you put this in a novel, I don't know that anybody would believe it. This is why Congress needs to interview him. Papadopoulos does have a credibility problem. I mean, now that you've been found guilty of lying to federal authorities, but again, he's got an important story to tell, and it does. I mean, this is a low-level person. He strikes me as a bit naive, at least back
28
then.
years old, met one time.
But and so, why are all these people spending so much time with him, introducing people to him? I mean, that's just not. That seems suspicious into itself.
Right. Said he believes it. He's trying to put it together. He's got 12 days in jail, and then maybe he can get his life started again. 1-866-408-7669. I'll be able to take your calls shortly. We're going to come back and more and talk with the author of The Deep State, Jason Chaffetz, in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Jason Chaffetz was with The Deep State, number 8 on Amazon, which is amazing. First book out of the gates. Just a few months ago, you were on Capitol Hill. Now you're in the real world. Welcome to the jungle. So when did you realize that it wasn't a slogan, it was real? Seriously, I mean, you probably went in there. You had an idea. You were working on Governor Huntsman's staff, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand there's bureaucracies, but what I saw, I didn't know really what the deep state was, and I opened up the book by recounting. I was the first member of Congress to go into Libya after the attacks in Benghazi. I was the subcommittee chairman on national security, and all of a sudden there's a State Department person there hovering over me at every move, and I like, what is this? Who is this guy? He couldn't illuminate anything about the attack, didn't know anything about Libya. He was there to essentially spy on me. And he intimidated people so that I couldn't do my job investigating what was happening there. And then we had a run-in, which I recount in the book, where I was getting a very top-secret classified briefing, and he didn't have the proper security clearance. Next thing you know, Cheryl Mills is yanking people out of meetings. She's the chief of staff to Hillary Clinton, saying, you have to have him in this meeting. We have to know what Chaffetz knows. And he didn't have the proper security clearance. So he's finally had to say, screw you, you got to leave. And I got the classified briefing. But the lengths to which Hillary Clinton's team went to spy on me and know and I'm doing an investigation. That's when I realized, what, the deep state, they're brazen. They're not bashful. They don't like exposure. They don't want accountability, and they're going to do everything they can.
And they feel impervious.
They do, and that's why they hate a personality like Donald Trump, who's a disruptive president. He uses unconventional means. They don't want that sort of accountability, and that's why they fight back, and they make a concerted effort to embarrass people.
You had another example, too, of a deep state. They went after you personally, went into your background, right?
We started doing an investigation into the Secret Service. Ends up they were doing some really stupid stuff. And moments into a hearing, the number 3 person at the Secret Service sent out an email saying it's time to embarrass Jason Chaffetz to make this a fair fight.
How did you get this?
Well, it took the Inspector General to extract it, but we had more than 40 Secret Service agents in more than a dozen offices they're diving into my background for nothing more than me doing my job, couldn't really find anything, but it's a bit intimidating to have the Secret Service do that to you.
So the President of the United States has said, what's going on here with this deep state? What's going on? Is the Russia investigation and what's happening on the side with Mueller and company, who's been uncovered, let's say, by the Inspector General Michael Horowitz, is that an example of the deep state? We see what Strzok and Page?
Absolutely. Look at the comments yesterday by Director Brennan. I mean, Brennan is actually going out there telling people you need to subvert the actions of the president. You need to stand up to the president. He's like giving them not a dog whistle, but actual direction to say you're going to have to quit your job. If you don't believe in
Eric Holder too.
If you don't believe in what the president is doing, then you need to do your own thing. And that's what you worry about with the bureaucracy of 2.2 million people, $4 trillion going out the door. You're going to have people who want to take it on their own and just go their own direction. Even before Donald Trump was sworn in, they started trying to embarrass the president. Classified leaks, go into the media, and they have a friendly partner in the media, right? I don't blame the media. Media's going to listen. But this is not a way a government can operate, but it is how the deep state takes a position and pushes to support somebody like a Barack Obama and wants to do everything to get rid of the Trump agenda.
But I don't understand why the deep state would like a Hillary Clinton or a Barack Obama when Republicans traditionally have been more pro-surveillance, pro-intelligence, more pro-military.
Because they want bigger government with bigger budgets. Remember, at its peak, the net increase in the number of federal employees was up about 120,000 additional people on the federal payroll. And have you ever heard of anybody really being fired by the federal government? That's what they don't want. They don't want the accountability. They don't want to be fired. They want more power, and they want to be left alone to just do their own thing.
So when people come up to you and say, oh, you must be a conservative, you believe in the deep state. No, I read Jason Chaffetz's book, The Deep State. I know. I have facts to back it up.
Story after story. Thanks, Brian.